Welcome back to Out of the Blue, the podcast, where we explore those unexpected moments, the ones that arrive without warning and somehow redirect our lives toward purpose, service, and connection. I'm Vernon West, and I'm here with my co-host, Vernon West III, the creative force behind our logo, our theme music, and so much of the soul of this show. Today's guest is someone whose life sits at that rare intersection of creativity, legacy, recovery, and service. A reminder that art doesn't just move us, sometimes it saves us. Tony Shimkin grew up surrounded by storytelling and music in a world where creativity wasn't a hobby, it was a way of life. And over the years, his work has quietly shaped the soundtrack of our culture. Songs, productions, and collaborations that reach the highest stages in music and entertainment, heard by millions, often without them even knowing his name. But as we say here on Out of the Blue, success doesn't always tell the whole story, because somewhere along the way, Tony's life took a turn, one that shifted the focus from external achievement to internal transformation. A turn that led him not just deeper into creativity, but into recovery, compassion, and service. Today, Tony stands on the front lines of healing, working with people struggling with addiction, walking alongside them with empathy, lived experience, and hope. He's chosen a path where creativity and care aren't separate chapters, but part of the same story. At its heart, Tony Shimkin's journey is about evolution, how legacy becomes responsibility, how recovery becomes purpose, and how the most meaningful work often begins when we stop chasing applause and start answering the call to give back. So take a breath, lean in, and join us for a conversation about music, meaning, service, and what happens when life gently or violently calls you out of the blue. Tony Shimkin, welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast. How you doing, Tony?
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
Both, it's really awesome to meet the two of you together now. I mean, I've talked to you, Vernon, but to meet your son, I have
We have
a
well,
father of my own son also. So
your son's
We
about
have
to.
fun.
You're just
We have
if you.
fun working together.
I think your son's about the same age as Vernon. Vernon's
my,
33.
my son has just turned 27. Yeah,
Oh, he's a bit older. Yeah,
close.
Yeah,
Uh,
he'd be in my ilk, especially if he's follows in your footsteps and does cool stuff with music, which I am definitely intrigued by. That intro definitely left me wanting more to
that's
the
what it's
story.
about. That was I hit the nail on the head. Good job, intro man.
I definitely tried to dissuade him from getting into the music business,
Oh
but
yeah,
he didn't
sure.
listen. He didn't listen.
I kind of say the
My
same
dad
thing.
warned me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have a thick skin. You have to be ready to deal with a lot of, shit. But Tony, let's start. Let's start. Let's hear your tell us about your journey, where it all began, how it started, and where it led, and where you are today. And
So
in 30 words or less. No, no, I'm kidding.
So I was born in New York City. I'm not going to say I was raised in New York City because I like to say I was raised in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hmm.
But I was born in New York City on May 9th of 1968, New York Hospital. Uh, my mother, Bonnie, decided I'm Jewish. My mother, for some reason, decided to name me Anthony Mark Nikolai Shimkin. Don't ask why. She even wrote a song about it. Something like Anthony Mark Nikolai Shimkin. What a heck of a name for a kid, something like that. Anyway, my father, Arthur, was 20 years her senior. It was his second marriage. He had a marriage prior that lasted 20 years. He has two sons, my half brothers, David and Johnny. My mother's a songwriter and a cabaret singer. My father was a record producer and children's record producer and creator. He's a Grammy winner. He won the Grammy, I believe it was, I want to say 1960. it was like the fourth Grammy Award or something like that. So 1962 or 1964 for it was Leonard Bernstein and the Philharmonic doing Peter and the Wolf. Uh,
Okay, I can actually remember like a TV show when I was a kid with Leonard Bernstein playing Peter.
yeah. So and he created Golden Books and he created Golden Records, which went along with the little Golden Books that Simon and Schuster published.
Sure.
Um, and he created Sesame Street Records. So I grew up around music. My parents had the most eclectic of record collections. I have a younger brother, 2 years my junior, Carl, and uh, he was I don't know. We were very different, and yet we're very close to still. I mean, even more so today than we were throughout the years growing up because we're both in recovery. And he had a big transformation. He became a nurse, at 48 years old, something like that. He became a
Wow,
registered nurse.
that's
And I
inspiring.
moved into this profession from the music business. So, I played music. I had two passions. I had a passion for the ocean and marine biology and marine science, which I pursued as a youth, living in New York. But I spent all my summers in Montauk, Long Island, which is, the easternmost tip of New
Oh
York.
yeah, beautiful
Yeah,
area.
they call Montauk uh, a a drinking town with a fishing problem. It was like known
Okay.
for, yeah, it was known for surfing and fishing, and and it was not the Hamptons. And my father fell in love with it during, like right after World War II. Before there was a Long Island Expressway, he found his way out to Montauk, fell in love with it, and from birth until up until I was 2 years old, we rented a place in there in the summers, and then when I was two, he purchased a home, which became our sort of summer place. And we went in the winter sometimes, but in the summers, I grew up spending my summers there and my rest of the time in New York City. And then I wound up working every summer from a very young age. Like there are child labor laws that would prohibit this now.
Right, right.
But my best friend, his father owned a marina, and I spent every summer living with my best friend most of the time at his father's marina, and he put us to work from like the age of 6.
Oh, like yeah, that's a law. There's a law
Yeah,
there
there's
somewhere.
a law there. Like a quarter an hour, I think was
Yeah,
our
a
first
quarter.
pay scale, and then it went up from there gradually.
But still,
Um,
it must have been a wicked cool adventure.
I loved it. I loved
Yeah.
everything about being around the water and fishing and boating
Oh
and
yeah.
then in New York, you know, I went to school and I got involved in and found music in my, throughout the years, but pursued it and started becoming interested in playing music and recording and all of that in my high school years. And I was around music all the time. My parents had New Year's Eve parties and Steve Allen would be playing piano and
Whoa.
like all of these people, the most eclectic collection of wacky and eccentric people would be at their New Year's Eve parties, and
Just
and
I've got to say I have a similar upbringing, but it was in Massachusetts, and one of my uncles was an MC and at the Frolics, and that was very popular. Had like Barbra Streisand, had a lot of big name people there, and every Thanksgiving or holidays, there would be a comedian. Like Jackie Mason once came, Frank Fontaine came. There was like these incredibly great comedians, and I remember as a child just laugh. I couldn't even eat. They just couldn't help but crack me up. Every word out of their mouths would make me die. And then I remember that also there were a lot of highballs laying around. It was all these, they were drinking highballs. And I don't know, I still don't even really know what a highball is, but it is a drink that my parents and their friends drank a lot. And it was like a normal thing. Just get drunk at Thanksgiving dinner.
yeah.
And that's all. You can continue now.
Yeah, no. I did. It sounds very similar. There
Yeah,
was a lot of
I can
drinking.
almost feel it, the same resonance of that same
Yeah,
vibe, you know. When
yeah.
you
There
had
was a
Steve
lot of.
Allen, that's crazy.
There was just like, yeah, wild parties, a lot of alcohol, people smoking. I mean, just a lot of music and laughter and life and all of that. And you know, I went to public school until high school for some reason. Well, not for some reason. My father lost his voice to um cancer of the larynx
Oh,
in when I was about 12 or 13 years old. He had a laryngectomy, and so he had the stoma, the hole in his neck,
yep.
and
Happened to my uncle. Happened to my uncle.
everything sort of changed from that. You know, when that happened, there were, all of a sudden there was financial difficulties, economic insecurity, job, and like like he was no longer president of Sesame Street Records, and he struggled to try to maintain what we all had, whatever my mother wanted, the house in Montauk, all of these things. And throughout the years, it was challenging. And my brother remained sort of in the public school system. And he went to Stuyvesant High School. His high school English teacher, I was very jealous of this in retrospect. His high school English teacher was Frank McCourt, the author of Angela's Ashes.
Oh, right, Angel's Ashes, right.
Yeah, and he was 2 years younger than me, but it felt like he was older than me in his, from an education standpoint.
Right. Did he get into recovery before you or after you?
That's a great question. So he got sober for the first time in early of 1996, and about 6 months after he got sober, I got sober for the first time.
Well, that's
And
exactly what happened
we
to me and my brother. Just
really,
nothing. And he's younger too.
yeah, I remember just the chaos that went on around that time before he when he went into rehab, and the chaos that came about, when he had a major sort of relapse many years later, and then conversely when I did the same. I got sober, and the first time was December 7th of 1996. It was a very much a physical bottom that I hit. I was newly married. I went through some sort of difficulties in early married life, and then very early married life. And we're talking like 6 months into being married, because we got married in June of '96. And I went to when I hit that bottom, I drove. I won't say the scene of the crime because I really had fond memories of Montauk, but I drove out to Montauk, Long Island in the middle of a blizzard, December of '96. Um, it took me 7 hours to drive out there, which normally would take 2 or 3.
That's a long
Because
ride.
of the
Yep.
blizzard, I consumed, I don't know how much of, drugs and alcohol on my way out there. And I remember I called my brother up about a day later, um, frightened to death. And I said, yeah, I don't know if I said I need help, but he knew.
Yeah.
And he told me to stop by and see him on my way back to the city, which I did.
That's what brothers are for, right? They can really be there
Yeah,
for you, you know.
yeah,
But it was a beautiful kind of out of the blue situation that he got the sobriety and you needed it next, you know. They kind
yeah.
of folds into it, you know.
I just remember, I think we were probably both struggling to some degree, but his was so much worse in the sense that you could point at him and go, he's floundering, he's suffering, he's having problems, his life is a mess. And as long as that was possible, there was no spotlight on me. I had a terrific career and a wonderful, I already had a thriving career. I was doing well by every measure. So my substance use and my alcoholism was just not apparent.
the
Whereas
the book
he,
cover. It's like the book cover.
yeah,
I think I shared about that once about that I felt like I had a book cover that nobody really knew how screwed up I was inside the book.
that's a great way to put it.
It was getting worse and worse, but people were like, he's doing all right. I mean, he's on there, he's succeeding, making money, whatever it is that they measure that by. And
Yeah,
I was thinking, yeah, I'm gonna pull this off, But when I finally did find myself in surrender and get recovery, nobody stood up and said, I never thought you had a problem. No, they were all very much, hey, good thing you got that, 'cause I wasn't kidding anybody. You
Yeah, we're the last to find out, right?
Yeah, right. But I thought I was. The book cover seems really intact.
Yeah, I remember when he, once he then went to rehab, um, the spotlight, I think, was redirected onto me.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were really going really well with success. What were you doing at that time when
Yeah,
this was going
so
on?
when I was 18, not 18, sorry, when I was about 16 or 17 and in high school, I started working in a recording studio. My father introduced me to the son of his friend who owned a recording studio in Manhattan called Soundworks. It's a studio where they did Steely Dan, like they recorded Steely Dan's Gaucho and Donald Fagen's The Night Fly and some amazing albums were recorded there, but primarily when I was working there as an intern, it was a dance remix sort of clientele, and I worked, for a year or two as an intern when I was in high school, and then as an assistant editor and assistant engineer, and then an editor, and then a record producer I was working with, who was a client there at the time, hired me to be his personal assistant. But we started writing music together, and before I knew it, I was working on, some of the biggest projects and the most major artists, and because I had a musical background and I played bass and I was in bands and I was technically savvy enough to run the digital gear that made it possible for us to produce and write within the home.
Vernon also is a very experienced recording artist. Uh, I would say you got a lot of he recorded with me. We did a whole
Yeah.
album together.
But not to turn the tables as an interviewer, but I'm really curious, what was the experience between you as a father and son working together? Because I have my own experience now in working with my son on music. Like we have worked together.
I'll
I
send
could
you this.
answer that.
Oh,
Yeah.
you do. You go ahead.
Okay, I mean
Then I'll take
from
a turn. Go ahead.
well, because from my perspective, it was different, I think, because I was learning about music through him, and I would see his band practices and see his live shows, and I was always like blown away. It seemed really fun too. I remember the music room would always smell like dude. It would always smell like kind of like gross men sweat, and I was like intrigued, like they're working up a sweat in there. That's weird. That's fun though. And so basically, it was like I started taking a liking to guitar or drums first, but oh yeah, it was drums, and then I had like a sort of band in middle school, and it was really just my dad sitting down with a laptop, and I guess his interface, which I don't really even remember. It was like an M box maybe,
Yeah, I
and
think so.
it was just like live in the room. Looking back now, pretty rough, pretty rough quality.
I remember
Pretty,
for you,
pretty,
I said, yeah, I had to set the console up outside the door of the room and shut it so I could have some separation to hear what the hell was being recorded. But later on,
okay.
that room we developed into an actual studio, and we put a windowed control room that was soundproofed. That made it a lot better.
Yeah.
We put a nice soundboard there. But I'm going to say, I want to chime in, Vernon. The first time we actually worked together, Vernon had come back from Principia. He went to school in Illinois, uh, right? St. Louis area, Elsa, Illinois.
Yeah. Are you talking about you're talking about the album, the
Can't Stop
EP I made
Dreaming.
in college?
No, I'm talking about when we came home the first time we did something together. We did Can't Stop Dreaming.
That is
How long
far
was
from the first time we
really?
started
All
doing
right,
stuff.
correct me.
Oh yeah.
When
When I was very young in summer camp, me and my friend Peter
oh,
Wise,
right now I
who's an
remember.
incredible like jazz fusion guitarist. Look him up, anyone who's listening. Um, we would write songs together at camp, and then we came back, and I just recorded like I think maybe one or two mics. My dad was really big into the drumagog from like as far as I
Oh,
can remember, so
wow.
I would have these like really like crappy drum sounds and the most pristine kick sound you could even imagine. And then, my buddy on guitar was actually really good for being, 13, I think, at the time. So that was really the first time. It was a lot of him overseeing projects. But then later on, I began like writing with him and his songs. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. When I think the culmination of all that growth was when we did the song "I Can't Stop Dreaming," and that still exists on YouTube. And when I put that out, just put it out as a lock. We filmed it, videoed it. A friend of ours that still works with us. As a matter of fact, the guy that's the producer of this show, Joe Gallo. Hey, Joe, he was the guy that filmed us down in my little basement room, and we did "Can't Stop Dreaming." It was just bass and drums and vocal, and that was it. And I said, let's just do it live because I felt like I was so sick of like perfect recordings and everyone's overdubbing, everyone's lip syncing. I figured like I'd rather have people see something like walking a tightrope. We might fall, you know. I thought that made it exciting. So, and you know what? I was right. We put that out without any push at all. Almost like in 2 weeks, it got 10,000 views all over the world. And I was getting like messages from people in Africa saying, "Vernon, what do you mean? Can we still keep dreaming?" So
Wow.
it was a wonderful experience. I used to tell people that he reminded me of Keith Moon, because
That's a compliment.
yeah,
Yeah, tell me about it.
because he was so like feeling. It was all about feeling. And I
Yeah,
said,
literally zero chops, all feeling. That was
"No, you
me.
had some chops. You had some
No, no,
chops."
not really. But I will say, just to wrap this up, before that, there was so much. There was like a lot building up to that moment, which wasn't, to me, in my mind, as big of a moment because I had recorded so much in that basement with you.
Yeah.
So it was a long relationship of me sort of like learning from him, wanting to record, not knowing how to record, asking him to record, not being satisfied with his recordings, learning how to record it myself, and then eventually I moved on to recording my friend's album in my basement. So it was like a long process.
No, this
And
is
Yeah.
then,
not. I know. Thanks for letting us say all that by asking that
I
question,
know,
but
I
I
know.
want to know about your relationship with your
Well,
son.
it's no, I asked because I was just, yeah, I was curious when my son, I used to have for many years after the sort of record business stuff, working with artists, remixing, producing. I had about a 15-year career doing music for advertising, which was a whole another animal, which was awesome because I was exploring multiple genres. I had to do everything from jazz to some classical to rock to R&B to hip hop to dance music, like electro, everything,
Right.
and then like just weird creations and all throughout all of those years, my son, I would often have him in the studio, like babysitting him essentially would be him being in the studio with me. And maybe he'd be playing a game while I was working the gear and doing my job. But I think he was around it. He got the music bug later on. His mother manages music artists. We always had music artists in the house, almost emulating sort of my childhood, right? We had odd people always around the house. These artists we were working with, my son was around it. He probably equal parts hated it and was fascinated by it. And so he got interested in music. And just for context, he now manages an artist. But there have been over the last couple of years, I'd say the last 3 years. About 3 years ago, he expressed an interest in exploring sort of writing music and recording music kind of not as an artist per se, but he wanted to be the artist. And he wanted to express himself as a way to process and deal with, I don't know, difficult emotions and
Yeah.
feelings. So he would,
Totally.
Absolutely.
yeah, so
That's
he
what drew
wanted
me
to
to it
do,
too.
yeah, he wanted to do it. And the first time we worked together, I hated it. Because first of all, he wouldn't listen to a thing I had to say.
Oh
And
boy,
I was very
that
much
sounds
like, well,
familiar too. I like
I'm
that.
the goddamn expert here. You gotta, like, I know what I'm doing. How dare, like, you need to listen to me. And he wanted to just have fun and explore. And it didn't go like nothing that we did at that point was anything I was very happy with. And maybe he was or wasn't, I don't know. But after a while, we came back to try it again, and all of a sudden, he allowed me to do what I do. I allowed him to do what he did, and it became like we were pumping things out. Like anytime we wanted to, we went to my studio and we popped out one or two or even three songs in a matter of hours. But for both of us, it was sort of for him, it was a an exploration and an emerging love of music. And for me, it was a return to my past love and enjoyment in producing and writing music again and creating these songs, not 30-second bits of a.
Yeah, like a full
Writing for
circle.
advertising is like write a song and make it 30 seconds long.
Right, right.
Hmm.
But it's full circle for your creative
Yeah,
spirit.
it was. I
Yeah,
was having fun again, and I nothing. There was no. I did not rely on it for my career. Right, I had a new career. I didn't need to do it. Now I got to do it. I got to have fun doing it again, which
yeah.
was really cool.
So what led you to your new career exactly, and out of music?
From about 2009, 2010, somewhere around there, maybe even 2008, somewhere in the close to 2010, began a long relapse. I had gotten sober in 96. I stayed sober for 5 years. I had a brief relapse. I stayed sober another 2, 3 years. I had another sort of brief relapse and stayed sober for another 2 years. But the periods of sobriety started becoming shorter. The periods of relapse started becoming longer. And then around 2010 until 2017 was one long relapse that got progressively worse, worse, and worse. And if you ask about an out of the blue moment, the out of the blue moment for me was in 2017, somewhere around, I want to say March, maybe for the first time, somewhere in February or probably March of 2017, I got found out. Not that there weren't signs, but I had excuses for all of the reasons, explanations for all of the bad things or the things that may have been concerning. And in around that time in 2017, my son discovered the secret that I had been hiding, which was a very bad addiction to opiates, to uh, prescription, heavy duty prescription opiates, not prescribed. Maybe they were briefly 10 years earlier, but he discovered that. So I got busted. He alerted my wife. There was a intervention, if you will, by them. My son desperately wanted me to go to rehab. My wife said, he'll call his sponsor. I had been in AA throughout this time as well, just by the way, going to meetings under the influence, going to meetings in and out of sobriety, struggling, and and for about a month and a half, I made promises, broke promises, and in the out of the blue moment for me, as best I can describe, was in April of 2017. I took my son after, being found out, promising, putting together, a couple of weeks, maybe a month, close to a month, relapsing, making the promise again. And so for the third time, he caught me in a lie. Um, I was I was asked to take him to Syracuse University, where he had been accepted to go to school, for sort of a welcome to the new students, incoming students. And I was not trusted to hold the cash. I was trusted to drive us up there. And I drove him up. And I did bring these pills with me. And while we were up there, um, he busted me again. This was like the third time he had now caught me. And just to paint a picture, the time right before that, he caught me and he was crying and he was emotional and he was hitting me. He was angry and he was screaming at me like, "Why are you lying to me?" Because I was denying what was going on. And I tried to my best to put him at bay and get away with it just a little bit longer. So I'm up at Syracuse with him. He found me out again, and he went to hang out with a friend of his from high school who was also up there for that event at Syracuse. And, I was on the phone with my wife and she said, well, he's going to drive back with his friend. He doesn't trust getting in the car with you. He's worried. He said he saw a text and I think I had about enough money in my pocket to pay for gas, not even cigarettes. And I cried on that night to my wife on the phone, and I think I gave up and I said, I'll do whatever you guys want me. I'll go to detox and I'll go to rehab. That's what he wanted from the get-go. And I came home and I went to detox, 5 days in detox in Manhattan at Mount Sinai West. And then I requested for rehab, a long-term residential program that I sent my brother to about 3 years earlier when he had a relapse. And his relapse was pretty bad too. I sent him there after he already done 28 days. I sent him to a place called St. Christopher's Inn up in Garrison, New York. He stayed there for 3 months, and then he went to a sober house. I followed the same path. So my sobriety date is April 25th of 2017. That's when I went into detox. And then after 4 or 5 days in detox, I had a couple of days at home waiting for the bed to open up. I went up to St. Christopher's Inn on May 4th, I think it was, or 5th. And then I spent I was 48 years old. I spent my 49th birthday on May 9th at St. Christopher's Inn. And I was there for 4 months. And then I went to a sober house and I stayed there for 11 months. I could have gone home, but they recommended that I go to a sober house. And I followed their recommendation, not willingly right away. I mean, it took a little while for me to completely sort of give up the idea that I knew anything about recovery or sobriety.
It is a real unbelievable testament, though, to make that kind of surrender,
Yeah,
really.
and that's where that is the place that I not only sort of gave up knowing anything, but when I did that, I opened myself up to learning a lot. And I was introduced to, the neuroscience and the science of addiction
There's
behind
a
it.
lot to it. Exactly.
Yeah, and so now I had AA 12-step program and I had all this other knowledge I was being given, and it just made me want to learn everything about it. And I went back to like driving Uber or whatever when I got out of rehab, but about close to 2 years later, almost 2 years after that, getting sober, I met the guy who ran that rehab, had gone to work where I work now. It's St. Vincent's Hospital in Harrison, New York. He had moved from that rehab to this hospital. And I was told to talk to him, that suggested that I talk to him, that he was going to be hiring and training people he called them peers, certified recovery peer advocates.
Oh,
I had no
really?
idea what it was. Yeah,
That's
CERPA.
cool. Yeah.
And I met with him. He put me through some training. I started working here as a peer. I then pursued becoming a credentialed substance abuse counselor. And now I'm in school full time. I work 2 jobs, this job and a job responding to non-fatal overdoses for the New York City Department of Health. I'm basically on call for like 12-hour shifts, 3 or 4 nights a week. I'm here 5 days a week. And I'm in school full time for my bachelor's, master's in social work. So
You're going to get your LSC,
I will get my
LSW?
LCSW or my, licensed clinical social worker is my goal.
LCSW.
Yeah.
It's amazing, Tony. That's amazing. Well, you're taking, and plus you're taking to that, your own personal experience. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love. I love the coming together of, my past life experience, my lived experience in addiction and recovery. So you take the music, that all of that just and the connection to so many like people like you, Vernon, and everybody we know, in recovery. And it's this connection with people that foster and it just a general sort of gregarious, open kind of nature I have of an interest. I'm curious about people. So I get to know people and that all just serves me really well in this field.
Yeah.
Um, to to do everything from see somebody who had an overdose who's homeless and in the hospital, and get them to trust me and maybe take some suggestions or allow me to help them, to people who who are 18 and 19 years old. I've worked with adolescents in the program here, but from 15, 16-year-old kids to 20 somethings and 30 somethings and 40, 50, like for some reason, I'm able to identify and, on whatever level,
You can connect with
with
them.
them. Yeah, I can identify with them and I can connect with them no matter what their age, background, race, orientation,
I
like, and
love it. I love it.
socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter.
It's
Yeah.
all about connection. It really is.
It's all about connection.
And
Yeah.
that's not for everyone too. That is like a specific type of mentor that can reach someone at their level,
I
you
think
know?
so. Yeah, yeah. I just,
This is so much right at the heart of Out of the Blue. This is exactly what I started the podcast for. I mean, it came about as an inspiration to somehow gather people and tell their stories and connect with other people. But it was all about connection and people sharing stories of resilience and how they turned their adversity, whatever it was. I wanted to have cast a wide net. It could be drugs, alcohol, could be getting a cancer diagnosis, it could be getting hit by a truck. I mean, it didn't matter. I think that's what's beautiful about this, because this is the heart and soul of Out of the Blue is connection. We want to connect people.
yeah,
I think that's the solution to, if you want my humble opinion, trying to be humble, the world's problems is the solving the world's problems is going to be done in this way. I really feel it. I feel that the only way we're going to solve this crazy stuff going on is by connection.
yeah.
Because there's,
I agree. The other thing I should I absolutely mention is the encouragement I've received from my wife and my son throughout all of this. Like, is beyond anything I could ever
it's wonderful.
impart.
It's wonderful.
Like, I never thought of myself as a good student. It was my wife who, throughout all of these years, was like, "You should go back and get your bachelor's. You should finish college." And I was like, "Oh, I'm stupid. I'm not a good student. I couldn't do that," until like they believed in me until I could believe in myself.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it just took actually studying a subject which I find fascinating to realize that I'm an amazing student when I love the subject. Um,
It's funny. It's funny you say you think you're stupid because I would not get that impression from you.
it's but it's self-esteem issues, I think, is
Yeah,
what it
yeah,
comes down to. And then, my wife and son have been so supportive and encouraging throughout it. And then I, in turn, am a better person and I can be there for them. The woman who worked at the rehab when I was there, this woman named Janet, sort of instilled in me this idea of uh, being able to not only recover and get sober, but uh, that I could be the father and the husband and the brother and the son that I always was meant to be,
yeah,
and made me believe that. They drilled this message into our heads at St. Christopher's Inn that, their mantra was, "You are a good man worthy of love and respect." And they repeated that phrase on a daily basis so often that at first you were like, "Shut up, I'm not," to gradually believing it, to wholeheartedly buying into that,
yeah.
and then passing that message along to the new guys who arrived there.
Exactly. And there's
Yeah,
another element that you just made me remember. Alignment. It's like connection and alignment. I think those two things are the factors or the things that precipitate real change. Because when you have alignment and you connect,
yeah,
and people get on the same course, same track, and then
yeah,
say the track starts to turn left, well, they start going with you because the action is good. The connection is there, and they trust you, and then you can precipitate actual change in their lives, which is
yeah,
so wonderful. It really is.
Yeah, the constant reminder of the simple thing, like that you are worthy of love.
Yeah,
Why is that so difficult
it's such a good
to
question.
to just accept? And it's like what is with this like incessant self-doubt that it seems like so many of us have, and it manifests in so many different ways. And why is it that the solution is so damn simple? Just repeating it.
No, you're right. I think it comes down to core beliefs. However we develop these core beliefs of, my core beliefs that I'm not a good student and like all of these that were so ingrained.
We just tell ourselves without realizing it,
I think
kind
it
of thing.
comes down to like, and we've talked about this in our 12-step meeting, but neuroplasticity, that long over a long enough period of time, you have these pathways in your brain, and they are so well established, so they're just so comfortable. Whether it's I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, or the conversely, I'm awesome, like ego, that you have these, they're so well established that if you believe I'm not good enough, it's so deep. But if you repeat, I am a good man of worthy, like a mantra of love and respect, often enough and for long enough, that becomes the new path. That becomes, and the other one gets filled in. I always love the example of sort of tracks in the snow. You get like deep tracks in the snow or the mud. And if you start driving down another path, those become the deep tracks. The other ones get filled in by weather and time. And
Love
so
it.
over
Oh
Love
yeah.
time,
it. Oh,
yeah,
wow. That's heavy stuff, man.
I think yeah, you're a great example of um like kind of like the book thing. Your life can be looking a certain way. You can maintain a presentation, but it is not too late. It's never too late. And it's okay if there's a relapse or it happens again. You never know what you're kind of being prepared for. It's the kind of thing where you look back and it seems like, oh, that made sense that those steps led you now to this like incredible career, this like, multi-level career of service. It seems like you've dedicated yourself to service and giving your experiences and your learned knowledge to other people, especially young people. Like that's huge. But like it's never too late, and you don't be hard on yourself because you could end up, you know, in a hospital helping someone who had no hope left.
yeah. There's you're so right that you could agonize over relapsing. But had I never relapsed, I wouldn't be where I like doing what I'm doing now. Like that took not only multiple relapses, but it took what it took. But I had these relapses that led me to eventually going to a long, like everything led to the next thing. And like you said, my wife asked me not long after I was in that long-term residential treatment. She mentioned how scary it was to go through that, the lies and not knowing what was going on for 10 years and all of this. And she said, promise me it'll never happen again. And the most honest thing I ever said in my life to this day was, I can't promise you
Can't
that it'll
promise
never
it.
happen again.
It's one day at a
Because I,
time.
yeah, right. I mean, chances are it probably will happen again. Like, you look at the
Mhm.
numbers,
Yeah.
but by saying that I can't promise it, I've just relieved myself of a tremendous amount of pressure and weight that I would have to carry around.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful testament to your relationship as well.
It is
To love
absolutely.
someone throughout their rough patches and changes and not expect them to need to be perfect in order to be enough.
Yeah. I mean, to
You
be
know,
married 30 years is an accomplishment. For given
you said it,
everything that
man. You
I've
said it.
put, yeah, to everything I've put them through, to everything they've been through and put me through, like to weather all of that.
It speaks to your integrity. It speaks to something about your soul. That
And the family
Mhm.
itself too, strong family.
Yeah. I mean, my mother and father stayed married until my father when he passed, and he passed with 10. My father got sober at 75 years old. That was the
that's
other part. I
that's
never even
so
mentioned to you.
amazing.
I followed my brother into sobriety, and my father followed us into sobriety. So six
Wow.
months after I got sober
Ah,
for the first time in 1996, my father got sober in 1997, and he stayed sober until he died in 2007. So it's
that's just a
unbelievable.
beautiful miracle. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah,
I'm saying it. That's a beautiful miracle, an example of love on the highest level, the
Yeah.
kind of love that really transcends everything. But Tony, I really can't tell you how grateful I am. It's a wonderful, wonderful interview, and you have so much good shit to tell us about. You know what I mean? I got to tell you a few things that popped in my head, but I don't want to waste more time on this episode. We can talk about it. It'll be part of the next episode, but
Okay.
we definitely will. I love you, man. Thank you so much for being here today, and on us out of the blue with my son and I, and man, there's yet more to come with Tony
Thank you
Shimkin.
guys so much for just letting me do this and to get to talk to you and get to learn a little bit about both of you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for asking a little bit about us. That
Yeah,
was fun to revisit. But
Yeah.
thank you for,
you
what you
are,
do.
yeah. And I have to tell you now, it's official. You have been adopted. You're part of the Out of the Blue family, and that's forever.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Out of the Blue, the podcast. This has been a special one with Tony Shimkin. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And I know you'll be coming back to see when we do part 2 with Tony, because it's going to come. Anyway, have a good day, and thank you again. Push that like button, smash that follow, whatever you're going to do to spread the word. Thanks a lot for joining us. Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Vernon West III, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org.